Look at that. Right on time. Perfect.
Hot damn.
We're on it today.
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Saturday night. So you know what that means. It's another episode of Spilling Ink. We are the talk show that takes you behind the book to meet the authors and professionals in the publishing industry. And we've got a brand new author to introduce you to. Well, she's not brand new, but she's new to you guys.
Yes.
Tricia, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Katie and Jane.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I hear you're also a podcaster too. So we're going to have to talk about that here in a little bit. And Jane, welcome back from your vacation.
Yes.
You were visiting ice castles. Oh my goodness.
Ice castles
were amazing.
Yep. Visiting the ice castles here. And then last weekend, getting my granddaughter christened. So that's why I wasn't here. I kind of popped in at one moment when I was in the car, and then, it's New Hampshire, so we lose service every second on the road. I'm like, oh, well, I can't watch the show anymore.
We were talking about a new game show that's coming up at the end of the month that Go Indie Now is hosting, which should be really fun. I can't wait to see what the guys come up with over there. And next week, we will have an announcement from Go Indie Now. And for those of you who are longtime viewers, Go Indie Now is basically part of the family, or we're part of their family. Mm-hmm. So they're going to be announcing their new seasonal lineup next week. So we'll have some fun promo to show you on that. And I don't have anything new to report. I'm just glad this week is over. It has been hell week.
And I'm just writing like a maniac and trying to grow my reader group, which
you're writing.
Fun.
That's good. I know you said you were having a problem. You were struggling with the writing. So you're back at it. Good job.
Yes. Yep. Writing the prequel and the second book at the same time. So, hey,
Okay.
Book one's done. It goes to the editor this month. So that's good.
All right.
So, I'm happy that I'm
we'll
writing.
Have to talk about the whole writing the prequel and the second one, because I guess that could work.
Yeah.
It's writing two different timelines, though.
Yes. And then I have to pick up from the book, and I've already written the end of book 2, the beginning and the end. So now I have to marry the two together.
Okay, kind of like our, hopscotching. We've done that before. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, you'll have to tell us some more about that in a little bit. But Tricia, you're our guest tonight. So let's hear what you write, because I know you kind of hop around the genres too.
I do. I started out writing a series called the Being Me series, and it's a fiction series, but it was based loosely on my experience with anorexia and recovering from anorexia as a young adult. So that was my first series. When I was about 40-ish, I decided, hey, it was a bit cathartic to just experience that again and see the progress I'd made since then in my recovery. So after I wrote that series, I had a lot of support. One of my friends was an editor and a self-published writer as well. And I had a lot of friends who were like, you got to publish it, you got to publish it, you got to publish it. And so I published the first 2 books. And then that led to a 4-book series. I don't know how that happened, but it did.
It does.
And I loved writing and the author world and the writing world and the reader world so much that I jumped into the fantasy genre, because that is my true love as a reader. That's my go-to, where I go to first. So I jumped into the fantasy genre with the YA urban fantasy series, Kingdom Journals. That kind of started me off. I don't know. Do you want me to pop in to what those series are about?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I totally love, Jane, that you're writing the sequel and the second book and the first book sort of like right at the same time. Because when I started my fantasy series, I had an idea where it was going and how it was going to go. And then I wrote book 1, 2, 3. And then I was like, oh, I think these people need to know more about the history. So then I went and did the prequel, and then I did book 4.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I wrote book 1 and I'm like, my male lead needs a prequel.
Oh.
His story needs to be told.
Yeah, it's smart because your brain is still thinking about all those things before you release them, and then you can make sure you have all those tidbits in the first book that needs to be there for the second and third and fourth book.
Absolutely.
Joe says he's got too much of a TBR pile. Don't we all? I mean, come on. If you're a reader of any kind, you're always going to have more books available than you can possibly read. And picking and choosing which one you finally get to is kind of a hard decision, really. There's so many you want to jump on right then and there, but you can't. You have to pick one.
Yep. And I'm totally picky, especially, being a senior editor on, Allegory eZine. You have to grab me in the first page. Otherwise, I will be lost and be like, nah, I don't have time for this. So it's awful. Yep. It's awful.
It's hard to read for pleasure when you're an editor.
Yes.
I can imagine. Yeah.
You're like always like trained to look for what needs fixing, and it takes away from that escapism that you're supposed to enjoy from the reading.
I want the escapism. That's what I want. I want somebody to grab me and pull me through the book and me not notice the errors. And I've read, even my favorite authors, have some errors in their books.
We're all human. It's going to happen.
It happens in traditional books too. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, but for the most part, if the story is good, you've got me. If you're slow to start or you're, scatterbrained, because there are, you lose me. And if you don't dig deeper and get me emotionally tied to the characters, you'll lose me. So those are the key things.
I think mine is if I cannot suspend disbelief, if you have made an error that's so unbelievably unresearched that I can tell, even without knowing the topic, then you've lost me. And a lot of that is what I end up doing in my own editing work, is correcting these mistakes I see from other authors and going, no, you have to do your research. I don't care if it's fantasy. It has to be believable. And if you're basing it in a real world place, you better know that real world place.
Right. And Tricia, you writing those fantasy books after writing something, similar to real life, that jump had to have been, was it difficult?
It took a little while. So I will tell you, the first paranormal book that I published was Drops of Sunshine. And I did it for an anthology because I wanted to write a fantasy book, but I didn't know how to make the jump. And the first draft I gave to my editor, she was like, this is not paranormal enough. You have to give more to this.
Yeah.
Because it's based in a summer camp, and a 16-year-old girl goes to this summer camp, and it's a camp for the sight impaired.
Yeah.
And one of her campers says, oh, your brother thinks this. And she was like, what? Like, how do you know my brother? And the campers just dropped these little things. And my editor was like, okay, this is not enough. It can't, like the first round was not enough. So I kept infusing more and more little tidbits in there about her campers and then about her background, and got it to the point that it was enough paranormal to her standards. It ends up that these campers have this special sixth sensibility of hearing people's thoughts. And this is like just a really cliquey community of people that don't let the secret outside. And these campers come every summer to be with each other together. And the girl ends up having some healing in there too. I always have a little bit of healing and also a little love story in all my books.
Oh, okay. I have to ask because of all the superpowers that you could possibly have, would you ever want to be able to read people's thoughts?
No. I am way too in my head about what people think about me as it is to actually know what they, and maybe it would be better. I don't know. Probably not. But it's funny because I'm again writing right now. I'm writing a short story with an artist and he's going to illustrate it. So we came up with a story together. But again, I'm writing another character who can read people's minds. I'm like, this is a recurring theme in my stories.
Well, I have a whole family that can do that. in mine, and they know how to create static too, so that others in the family can't read.
Yeah, you need that. You need that ability.
Yep. But
Oh.
yeah, I had somebody transfer their powers to another person from touch, and then he, for somebody who had no powers at all, to all of a sudden being able to hear people and didn't know how to shut it off. It's like, why is it so loud in here?
Yep.
So yeah, even with the abilities, you got to give them challenges to deal with it, to shut it off, or to make sure others don't get in there.
It always sounds like a great idea to be able to read people's thoughts, and then the reality of it, if you could, it's like, oh, I'm hearing stuff I don't need to hear. No. Joe says I don't even want to hear my own thoughts. Yeah. Oh, just thinking about somebody else hearing my thoughts, because there's a million things always going on. Oh no, that would not be good.
Well, now I'm realizing too, my fairy stories have that as well. I have a Realm Chronicles series that's about fairies, and I actually thought, oh well, on Earth my fairies can hear people's thoughts. And then I thought, well, that'd be really bad if they hear each other's thoughts all the time. There's not going to it would just be bad. So in their realm, which I call Middle Earth is the Fae realm, I have them so they don't have those powers. But when they come to our human realm, which is the plane above the Fae realm, then they have those powers, and they're extra strong and they're extra fast, and they can phase into anything. And I think I've been thinking it's because there's less gravity on our realm than there is in Middle Earth, because it's closer to the center of the world. So I haven't had to explain that yet, but I've been thinking that's my explanation if somebody calls me out.
Well, and that's important whenever you have a magic system in writing, is to make sure that you know the rules. So one, you don't break the rules, but two, you can explain it if anyone ever questions you on it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the good thing about writing books all at the same time before you release them too. So you make sure you don't break a rule or make a rule that you need undone.
And sometimes those rules, if you're writing linearly, you get to like the third or fourth book and then you realize you're getting stuck by the rule that you made. It creates a really fun problem to try and fix, because the rule is very much established and you cannot break it whatsoever. So you have to come up with new and inventive ways to work around it. Yeah.
I mean, when I was writing the first book, I kind of had to go back and say, okay, what were the rules that I made for this character, this world, and this stuff, and what kind of rules does she break because of the combination of things she is, because she's a hybrid. And it's like, okay, what can she break? How can she break it? But what are her limits? Because you can't make, I mean, you have Superman. Superman had kryptonite. You have to have that. You can't make them, infallible.
That's one of the things that the comic book characters get a lot of flack for, is because they're too overpowered. You've got to have the rules, but you also have to have the thing that's going to be their kryptonite in order to have a character that feels at least somewhat balanced.
Yes. Yep. And that could be love. It could be their love interest that is their kryptonite.
And what do you villains usually go after? They go after the love interest.
Yep.
There's the pressure point.
Absolutely.
But I do like writing in fantasy. That's my favorite genre to play in. So I'm right there with you. Now you've got fantasy, but you've also got, was it dystopian as well, or was it sci-fi?
Yes, it's a dystopian with a little bit of sci-fi, very little sci-fi. It's mostly a dystopian story. Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about that one.
Yeah. So that one is called Lovelock Ones, and here's the cover.
Ooh, I like that.
I wrote that, and I had to look it up. I have a sale on that this week, actually, for 99 cents. Oh, how great. So that ebook is 99 cents on Amazon right now. But I wrote that back, I had to look it up. I wrote it back in 2018. I released the whole thing in 2018. It also started as part of an anthology. I was pushed to write a story about healing, and my background is in biotech and microbial genetics. So I came at it from that standpoint, writing about a viral pandemic that sweeps the earth. So that happened. I released that in 2018. And then when 2020 hit, my friends were like, this is totally freaky. Because in my book, I even blame it on the Chinese. So, like in the very beginning when all that hysteria was everywhere, my friends were like, you are really eerie and you freaked me out. So that didn't go so well in 2020. I did publish the follow-up in 2020, but really it's not about the pandemic and the flu strain. These characters, they're teenage characters and they're shipped to the desert by their parents because they're trying to evade this pandemic. And they discover that the main character's younger sister gets the virus. So as a big sister, she's like, I gotta fix this. I gotta find the cure for my sister. So she goes against she's in this community that's trying to find the cure, but they can't get it fast enough. So she risks everything. She risks exposing the community and, of course, to get the cure for her sister. But then she has a friend to help her, who is Troy, who is the other Lovelock one. And he finds out some interesting things about himself and his genetic makeup and why he is like so amazing the way he has like extrasensory powers as well. He's a little bit stronger than most people. And he finds out some interesting ideas about that. But then this whole group who's trying to find the cure then decides that, well, we have the cure and we're not going to share it. So that becomes a major issue in the plot line as well.
Of course.
Awesome. Yes. Well, I heard about the pandemic too, but it just turned into dragons and monsters. But that was after the pandemic started.
Yeah, I don't know. Those 2020 was really hard writing, at least for me. A lot of people I did find were able to, use that time at home. For me, it was really hard writing. I went into a lot more editing that year because I couldn't tap into any creativity. 2021
from March or from the beginning when we were home, probably until for a good quarter, which for me is a lot.
Yeah,
I couldn't either in 2020, and then I'm like, this is ridiculous. I have to write because otherwise I will go batshit crazy. And not saying that I'm not already there, but I, and then I started writing. So,
how about you, Tricia? Were you able to tap into your creativity in 2020?
No, I was writing and publishing 3 books a year before that. And in 2020, I landscaped my yard. And then by the end of the year, I was the same as you, Jane. I was like, I have to start again. I have to do this. And I made myself do it. And that's when I published my first Faye story. It was my longest story too. It turned out to be 110,000 words.
Oh, that's a pretty good sized book.
That's a good sized book.
So it turned out really good. And I was really proud of that book, but it took, I didn't start writing until I think September of that year. And I didn't release till the next April. It took a long time compared
now,
to
what's your writing routine like? Because I know a lot of us, we have like our almost ritual on how we write, and some of us just kind of sit down and write.
I find it works for me if I write every day. It works best because then I keep it fresh in my head. And then I have a day job as well, but even if I'm doing other tasks or I'm taking a shower or I'm cleaning my carpet or I'm cooking my food, I'm always thinking about that story and I'm progressing it forward even when my hands aren't on the keyboard. So by the time I sit down and type, I have what's coming next. And that sort of stops that. I now hardly ever get what I say would be writer's block because maybe I'll, write for an hour at night or for a half hour in the morning when I first wake up. And then throughout the day, I'm thinking of the next thing I'm going to write. So when I sit down, I know what it is. So that usually works best for me. And if I do those challenges like NaNoWriMo or the April, I think it's the camp one or July one. So those work really well for me. And I'm really set by deadlines. Like I set my own deadline and then I work towards it. And, I'm my editor. So I know, okay, I have this date, I have to turn it into my editor. So it's going to get done by then.
She's a lot like me in that way because I set my editors and, the blocks of time and things like that ahead of time too, throughout the year, because I do it all year. And then I'm like, oh, if I want to write more books, I got to get, more dates.
I can't do that. I guess in a way I am kind of held to that just because the client work that I do, but for my own work, I've never been able to hold myself to a specific deadline. But like you,
Except
before
for when
2020, I was publishing 3 a year.
Yeah, except for when we're writing together.
Yeah, well, that's different. That kind of falls into the same category as like the client work that I write for. I know that there is a hard deadline I cannot miss, and so I'm rather than disappoint someone or fail to deliver, I got to get it done. Whereas for myself, it's like I'm at the whim of my creativity, which is pretty much gone as of 2020 for my own stuff because I haven't published anything fantasy wise since 2019.
I think so. I think
yeah.
When did ours come out? At the end of 2020?
Ours came out
at the end of 2019 and beginning of 2020.
The beginning of 2019, yes, through 2020. And then I think I finished book 3 or book 4 for the Agents of Asset series in 2019. And then the only thing I've published since has been the writing guide, but that's nonfiction. That's different. And most of that was already done because I basically used a compilation of 10 years worth of blog posting and classes that I've taught in order to make the book. So it wasn't as creative writing as the other stuff. So I envy you guys who are still creatively writing.
Well, sometimes I'll write 2 words, but I sit down to write.
There are those days, yes.
Sometimes I write 2,000 words, which is good.
And sometimes 2,000 words can feel like 2 words. Like you just, they come out, it's done, no problem. And sometimes 2,000 words feels like an entire novel because it's a struggle for it's every word to get it out.
It's like,
and even though we give the advice all the time of, shut the internal editor off and just write, it's really hard to do that.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah.
All right, back on to fun topics. So we've got your fantasy, we've got your nonfiction, we've got your sci-fi. What else are you creating?
Well, right now I'm writing that short story with the artist I told you about, which is turning out to be really cool. It's set in the Aztec Empire with a girl who is marked, and some believe that she's marked by a demon, but she has a shaman that takes her under his wing and helps her develop her powers. I'm not going to say more because I don't want to give away too more, but I'm like totally immersed in Aztec culture. Like I'm looking up what is the Aztec word for this, and how did they name their children, and what did they eat, where did they live, what did their shamans believe, what were their god system. And so it's going to be a fiction story, but based a little bit on history. So that's
I love that.
fun to do all that research.
Oh, the research is half the fun. I love diving into the research in books, and that sounds like a really juicy topic to research on.
There's so much knowledge. I found this one website and it's made for kids, but it's like so easy to read and it's teaching me everything I need to know. Yeah. Like what games did they play? Did they have dolls? So and they had latrines. Like even like in BC, they had latrines in the Aztec.
Okay.
Yes, it's amazing.
I like that you're looking at a kid's site too, because I always tell people, explain it to me like a 5-year-old. And seriously, just dumb it down for me so I can understand it, and I will get more out of it than trying to, research things that are way above my head.
Well, and for whatever reason, this site has more information than any other site that I have looked on. So they have everything cataloged by all the categories. And it's amazing.
Nice. Yeah, I've got to find that for pre-Mayan history. Or Mayan history, and then go pre that for the prequel to the dragon books. So
I'll send you the link because they may have other. It's a Mexican site, and I think it's the University of Mexico or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, send me the site. Cool.
Very cool.
But you talk about research. One thing when I wrote my fairy stories, I did no research. And then after I published it, I got so scared because people kept saying, oh, my fae don't have wings. I'm like, what? Your fae don't have wings? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, my fairies have wings. They're like, my fairies are harmed by iron. I'm like, oh no, mine are not. Like I didn't follow any of the rules that people were following. but nobody got mad at me. So that's good. So far, so good.
When it comes to fantasy, you're allowed to create your own creatures.
Yes.
Yes.
As long as you're not calling them, specifically what, we've got in mythology or history, then yeah. And fae is such a broad term.
It is. It is. Well, you look at Laura
Laura Thassela.
Thank you. I'm like, I always fuck that name up. Sorry, Laura. But you look at her Rhapsodic, and the Bargainer series and all of that, and her fae have wings.
Oh, well, and now I've talked to several authors who fae do have wings, and I'm trying to actually talk to one of these authors who fae doesn't have wings, but they're supposed to live in a plane above the human realm. So they're different fae than mine, and they live above the human realm. I'm like, we have to write something together so that these fae come together. Right? I have to still convince her, but I'm working.
Writing collaborations can be definitely fun.
Yes.
We had fun with our Running from the Devil series because we combined the fae, we combined the angels and devils. We combined so many elements into that series, and it was just so much fun.
Oh, it was. And we had some of the rules from my Ryan Chronicle series, because some people yes. That's like, oh, I'm always embarrassed when I try to say her name because I never say it right. I always think that there's an S in the middle and the L's are at the end. Yeah, maybe I'm a little dyslexic. Who knows?
We all have that one word.
But yeah, yes.
You were talking about the Ryan Chronicles.
Yeah, well, our books.
Yep.
They sort of showed up at the end, but.
Well, you've always managed to weave your stories together so that you've got 60 books or more.
61 books, yes.
Yeah, and they all tend to have some linking element to them that kind of
which was very tough with the Dragon Chronicles because I did not have any references to anything that came before. So that was its own world. It was separate from everything else. Even this new one, the Shades of Night series, it gives homage to my wolf book, Wolf Moon.
Okay.
Which I haven't written 2 and 3 on that one, but it does point that out at some point. I'm like, okay, if I connect that, at least that world will be connected.
I like how you've been able to connect most of them. I think that gives your readers something to follow too.
Yes. And I do have on my website, I do have a page that has the Ryan timeline, and it starts, and it lists all the books in order of their timeline.
Okay.
So yeah. And that's my biggest thread that goes through it.
I'll have to go check that out. I haven't seen it in a while.
So, yes.
Now, Tricia, do you do something similar to that? Do you link any of your series?
Yeah, so my first fantasy series, the Kingdom Journal series, is about, well, it was supposed to be a vampire series because vampires are my favorite fantasy characters, but somehow it morphed into a witch series because so it's called Kingdom Journals because each one is written through the eyes of a different character. And the first character is a hybrid witch vampire character. And I think that's why it became more of a witch series, because there's a curse on the witch lines that she has to figure out. And she pairs them with the other witch to try to figure this out. And then they discover there are these special witches that can maybe break the curse. And then they have to go find the third witch of the Trinity to further that goal, I guess. Yeah. So there's 4 books in that series, one for each of the 3 witches, and then one that got taken away by one of the other characters who's a herald to this trinity of witches. So 4 books in the Kingdom Journal series and 1 prequel that was actually my vampire book. So I finally wrote an all vampire book because it's about one of the witches' mother, Alina, who is the vampire witch hybrid. Her mother is a vampire. So it's about her mother's history and how she came to be. Because my vampires are born, and they're just differentiated people, I guess. So for my genetics background, they have found that out. But it's set in contemporary urban fantasy. But people don't know about the witches or the vampires for the most part, hopefully. So they don't come after. I always say after us because I kind of consider myself one. But to jump ahead, yes, how I linked that series, to get to your question, is that I wrote a Fae short story for an anthology. And that's how I got started on my Fae series. And then I put that Fae in the finale of the Kingdom Journal series. So she comes to help the witches against an evil witch. And then, so I'm linking those to the Kingdom Journals and the Realms Chronicles. So the first two books, the witches haven't appeared very much. They appear a little bit because the finale to the Kingdom Journals and the first book of the Realm Chronicles series sort of happened at the same time. So we have a crossover in those. In the second book, we don't see much of the witches. We only see a little bit. But they end up fighting the same foe that's from the original first start of the Kingdom Journal series. So it's really fun to weave those in, and I think my readers like it a lot too. But I can't let go of my characters, and that's really the reason why it helps, because I miss them too much. Once I stop writing a series, I don't want to stop.
Yeah.
So
I miss my characters too. That's why I have so many. Yeah. I've written vampires twice. The first time when they bite humans, it's like a poison. The second time, they're more traditional vampires. They can't be in the light in both books, but in this one, the vampires feed until the person dies. There's no donors. There's no, things like that. So that's why they're hunted.
All right, you got to make them real killers.
Yes. Yep. And my shifters are good.
I've always written from the angle that the monsters are less monstrous than humans. So a lot of times in my books, it's the humans that are the bad guys.
In this one, I think it's more that way. Yeah, because the Monster Defense Agency that they work for in the new book is not exactly without corruption. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I like playing with the reverse angle on that. Because everything that has been written so far, everybody's used to seeing the monsters portrayed in certain ways. So when you can flip the script just a little bit, it gives you that special thing that readers can remember you by. And I always go back to like the Twilight series. We can laugh about the Twilight series all we want, but we remember that those were sparkly vampires.
Yes,
something different.
Yes,
and that is memorable. Yes. That's what sticks in a reader's mind, is that little bit of difference you can give them. And I like the genetic angle you were talking about. That reminds me of the Discovery of Witches. What is that series called?
Yes, that is like on my TBR. It has been on my TBR for years, and I've just never gotten there. But I've heard it's so good. I don't know the name of the series either, but yeah,
they play off the genetic angle, and their creatures are slightly different than what you expect. They have the vampires that basically look like normal people, don't have the fangs and all that. And there's that genetic component to what's happening with them and why their species are in decline. And that, again, becomes an interesting point that makes you go, oh, I need to learn more.
And for me, it kind of makes it more real, too. Like, it pulls me in and makes me think, oh, vampires really could be real.
Yeah. And a side funny note to that, I've never been afraid of creatures. Like growing up, I always loved vampires, werewolves, witches, all those creatures, because in my mind, they weren't real. They were fiction, and I could differentiate the two. And, I enjoyed that fantasy realm. Zombies, on the other hand, scared the crap out of me because there was something in my mind going, they could be real. Something could happen and we could have zombies. And so zombies have always freaked me out, but nothing else in the creature realm has ever freaked me out.
So when I finally get to that zombie series, You're not going to read it?
Sorry, Jane.
well, I've got a neighbor at our beach place that has read the short story that I did for the prequel of that, and she's like, "When's the series coming out? Seriously, when is the series coming out?" I'm like, "Not this year." It might be. I might dabble into the horror side later in the year, but
how nice is it when you have readers tell you, "Oh, I want to know when the next book is coming out"? Doesn't that just like really fill you up? You're like, "Oh, I can't wait to write this now to make you read this."
Well, except when you live with them.
Oh, well, yeah.
My mother-in-law going, "When's the next dragon book going to come out? You left it open. It's coming out." And I'm like, okay. And I told her this series is more spicy. It's not like that one, but if she wants to read it, she can.
Wait,
like,
spicy zombies?
No, the wicked, the Shades of Night.
Oh, okay.
Has more spice in it. Well, the third book of the Dragon trilogy had some spice in it too.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, this has a little bit more edge to that.
Okay.
So,
yeah, you'll just have to make your mother-in-law your beta reader. That she gets them first.
No,
No?
I don't think she'd be. No. No.
For the dragon one, or whatever one she wants.
I know. I've got to do that pre-Mayan one because that one I have the idea. It just has to bake a little longer. I have to have more dreams about it and then sort of fully form it. I have the idea, but I just don't have the true arc of the story series.
Anita says it's so hard to keep track of Jane's series. Yeah, just a little bit.
I put out 6 books a year?
Do I have your banner?
2 short stories.
It's amazing.
I have your banner. No, I don't have your banner with all your books listed.
Oh, the one that. Oh, hold on.
I was going to put it up on screen and just brag about you a little bit with all of your millions of books.
Yeah, let me go there. Hold on. I think I can find it. Let me find it. Is it in memes, ads, and banners?
Well, while she's doing that,
yep.
How about you, Tricia? How do you feel on zombies?
I'm not a fan of zombies either. I have to say, I didn't watch the Living Dead series. I don't like zombies as much as the other characters. I did like iZombie on CW. I don't know if you saw iZombie.
I did. That one was an interesting twist.
Yes, and Joe Michaels has a book titled the same thing, iZombie, that she wrote before that series came out. That was a good one too, but it was a YA, so it wasn't. And I think the zombies were caused by a virus or something like that. So they were. Well, I don't want to tell you what happens in the end.
Yeah. See, for me, it was always.
It was a happily ever after. So.
Oh, good. Happy endings are okay. I even was okay with Warm Bodies. I did watch that.
Oh, I like that one.
And I thought that was again, interesting take. It was memorable. Mm-hmm. But anything that's like a little bit gritty or where zombies are concerned, I cannot watch because in my mind, there is that element of realism. Something could trigger, like a rabies style virus could cause humanity to go berserk. And that freaks me out.
And I'm sharing the written, which doesn't include what I've written this year.
Can you zoom in on that?
I maybe, and then go.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
And then those. Our books are in here too.
Yeah,
I see that. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 more books that I've already, or 2 more books that I've already written, and 2 that are halfway done.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And
we got another iZombie was fun, Anita says.
Well, I liked Zombieland.
Okay, Zombieland was
that one was really good. I like that.
Did you watch?
The second movie was good too.
The second one. That's what I was about to ask. Did you see the second one as well?
Yeah, they were both good. I mean,
I haven't seen the second one
yet. Who didn't like Woody Harrelson? He's always good. So
yeah.
But again, those were the more fun kind of takes on them. They weren't as horrible. I couldn't watch The Walking Dead, or the Fear the Walking Dead, or any of the other just really bad zombie books or zombie movies.
So Young
yeah.
Blood is the prequel. Wicked Heart's already done, and Crooked Soul is the second book in the series. So, yeah. So
I don't think
that's
I've seen that
2022.
prequel book cover. You show me the other
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah, no, I
Wow.
got that. Yep. Yes. So this is what I'm working on until like September.
Okay.
And then I'll have the rest of the year to do other stuff.
And then at some point, our project.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And I also wrote Belle this year. So that one's all done too.
The Crazies. I don't think I've seen that.
Belle?
No,
That's another fucking fairy tale. Oh, okay.
Anita says The Crazies made with Tim the Elephant.
Oh,
I don't think I've seen that one.
know. I haven't seen that one.
Is it scary, Anita? Because if it's super scary zombies, I won't be able to watch it.
It probably is because, Anita's like me.
I can do any other creature. Any other creature is fine. Just not zombies.
No, I watched The Walking Dead for many years and then just got tired of the repetitiveness. And I know it's ending. And a part of me is like, oh, just go watch it. Yeah, she says kind of scary.
No, thank you. I'll take y'all's word on it.
No.
But I have that crazy well, as authors, you probably all have the same thing. The overactive imagination. And so when you see something that terrifies you, and then it's the dark of night and it's quiet and something moves, there's a noise you don't expect, and your mind won't shut off, and that's all you can think of.
Just aim for the head. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to remember. Just aim for the head.
I already sleep with a sword next to me.
Yes, just aim for the head.
Right through the eyeball.
Okay,
right?
problem is I
Exactly.
also have kids who also like to do that creep into your bedroom and stare at you until you wake up thing.
Tell them not to.
I kid you not, my boy child, who is 10 years old, still crawls into bed.
Yeah.
And this whole week, he has been like clockwork, 2 a.m. Comes into bed and just like, come on, just lay down, just you sleep.
Just shush and go to sleep so I can sleep.
Okay, love you too. No more nightmares, night.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, I can't, I can't aim for the head if I get woken up by little children staring at me.
That's true.
Yeah, my daughter came into my room one time. She had her like hood up, and my dog sleeps in our bedroom. My dog like jumps up on my bed, starts barking at her, and I didn't know it was her even. Like I was like, my heart was pounding. I thought it was a robber. I really did. And then she was like, "Mom," and I was like, because my dog was even freaking out. So.
Yeah, my husband, when he was taking karate, he kicked my dog in the head once because the dog came to the side of the bed, and in his sleep he sort of woke up and just whack. And I'm like, you can't do that to the children.
Oh, that's terrible. I can see it happening though. I can totally see it happening. I have thrown a punch in my sleep before. I don't wake up very, very easily. And my daughter, my oldest daughter, she goes to school right before I wake up to get ready to get my little ones ready. And even she has learned to tap my foot and back off if I oversleep my alarm, because I will sleep straight through it. Because I have accidentally thrown a punch when somebody tried to wake me up.
Because you're fighting the world in your dreams. Yes. Just like all of us do. My dad, I don't know if he's watching, so he's going to laugh at this. He has a CPAP, which is the thing, with the hose. And when he first had it, he woke up struggling because he was fighting himself, because he was fighting something in a dream. He's gotten used to it now, but he's got a very active imagination too. So I guess that's where I get it.
Yep. That's why I can't watch horrors, especially things that really truly freak me out. Like, horror movies in general, okay, but if it's something that truly freaks me out, the overactive imagination will do me in.
Do you guys remember your dreams?
Not most of them.
No?
If I wake up, I do, but otherwise, no. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I'm the only weird one here.
Do you write them down like a
When you're having the dream?
No, I can remember them days later because they're so
Wow.
bizarre. I wake up and I'm like,
wow. I wish I could do that. I wake up with the sense of knowing I had a really cool dream, but by the time my eyes are open, it's gone.
Yeah, I don't feel the stress I felt in the dream, but I can remember all the stuff and I'm like, where is this coming from? If people analyze my dreams, they probably would put me in a padded room. But you know, and I told my husband and he's just looking at me like, what? So yeah.
That's pretty cool. I'm
Just
envious.
really
I would
bizarre
love to remember
dreams.
it.
Like, okay, that wasn't really book related, but I could use it for that. Yeah. So
Well, I know a lot of authors say that the dreams are what inspire their stories.
yeah, you know, I've done that before too. So, you know, I my most fearful things were put into the Steve Williams series and the survival game series. You know, those situations and horrible things that happen were nightmares, you know. So
your mind is always feeding you inspiration, even when you're sleeping.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I have to write.
Speaking of the inspiration in writing, because we always have to figure this out. Are you a plotter or a pantser, Tricia?
I'm sort of in the middle because I will have a story arc and I'll know where I want to go and I know a couple of major points along the way, but I don't know like each like I'm like Jane said, I've got the beginning written, I've got the ending written, and then it's the middle I have to fill in. I have to figure out like what are the highs and lows of the middle. So that's but it's the creative part of writing is what's fun for me. Like if I knew every step of the way, I would be bored in my writing. So
I have an outline that I had to do for a class, and it should be a really good book, but I have no incentive to write it because it's all outlined, and I had to do the outline. If it, you know, like with the Death Chronicles, my son did the outline, and then I followed it. But I could still be creative because I didn't do the outline. I just had to follow and then ask him questions when it deviated. So it's like I'm like that, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm most creative when I'm under a deadline. Like the third book in my Kingdom Journal series, it's the one where the Herald, he's the major feature character and he's telling his story and he has to get from Italy to the United States. And I was like, well, it just can't just be he gets there. Like he can't just hop on a plane and gets there. It can't be that easy that he gets from these evil witches. And then I was thinking, well, they branded him. And in some way, this brand is going to tie him to them, but he has to get to, he's tied. He can only go so far away from this evil clan of witches. So how does he get unbranded and what does that look like? So I was taking a shower and I'm thinking, okay, well, it's a brand on his wrist and somehow it's connected to his heart or his soul. And what does it look like when they try to disconnect it? So then I thought, well, they're going to put these iron metal things on the brand on the tattoo. And when the witch, who's like this very special witch, like the only one in the world that could do this, is going to pull these strands that are around his heart. And she's going to have to wind these strands, and they're like brilliant blue glowing strands. And she has to unwind them like little by little. And if you can imagine like thinking of the pain of like these strands being tied around your heart and pulled through your arm, through your wrist. So I came up with that in like a 20-minute shower.
Oh yeah,
shower thoughts, man. Those are the best.
Yeah,
like I have no idea where that came from, but it's one of my favorite creative things that I haven't seen anywhere else. So
yeah, that's very creative.
That is awesome. I love that.
Chop the arm off.
Oh, there you go. I never even thought of chopping the arm off.
We did something similar in the Asset series because of the without giving away too much, the weapon of magical destruction tying itself to the main character. Similar thing. Can't just get rid of it. You have to come up with a legitimate way to remove it without killing the host.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
So I love that. And shower thoughts, man. That is when you get the best ideas.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Every time.
And you can't
maybe your other senses are dialed down or something. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. You know, I get my best thoughts when I'm, walking the beach up in Maine. You know, when I was walking with my headset, I don't do it very often anymore because we walk together. So, but my mind is still turning in the background. It's always turning. That's one of the, I guess, chaotic effects of being a writer is your mind is always going, whether you're at the day job or with the family or in the shower or sleeping, your mind is always going.
Yeah,
I
you're
think
problem solving.
Really, yeah, I still want to write with somebody because I've talked to so many authors who co-wrote, and I think you really get inspiration from each other, and that can keep you like going, and it brings like those new elements that you wouldn't have thought of, and this twists and turns. I think that's really
It can definitely be fun, but it's think of it like a marriage though.
Yes.
You both got to be willing to give in certain areas. You both have to be willing to see each other's sides. Your thoughts about the story have to be on the same page, so that way there's less conflict between you guys. But if it meshes well, it can work really, really well.
I loved writing with Katie. Yeah, I point the right way.
Same. We had a great time. We've known each other for so long. Our writing styles are very similar.
Yes. My husband couldn't tell when he read the books.
Yes.
And he could not tell who wrote what.
That's very cool.
And he said, I'm very impressed. You guys meshed
good.
so well. I could not tell. He goes, and then he asked me one of the phrases, and I said, well, I think that was me, but I'm not sure. I was like, I think that was me.
We did really good with that, and we had fun with it too.
Yes.
But again, we were on the same page like from day one. Yeah. And if there was something that either one of us was either confused on or didn't know how to go forward with, the other one seemed to always have the answer.
Yep. The gap.
Yeah.
We were able to fill each other's gaps. Like, I don't know where I'm going from here. I got to here. She would write scenes and then I would do the jumps, or I would write scene and she would do the jumps. So it just worked out. And as I had an opportunity to write with somebody else, but I took a look at her writing and there was no way we could really mesh, which, if we were doing alternate characters and alternate chapters, maybe, but I've read a lot of Katie's stuff. I was, one of her early beta readers too, and vice versa. So we kind of know our styles. And we know our styles.
We've used each other as springboards for, a lot of times when we get stuck on our own stories. Jane will get an email from me at like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yes.
Which is luckily 5 or 6 in the morning your time. So it works.
Exactly.
Help, I can't figure this
out. And usually I'm like, okay, one eye open in the bed going, okay, I have no idea what I'm writing because I can't see it. I don't have my glasses on.
I just had this dream and you can borrow it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the sounding board aspect is so good, especially, when you do get stuck on something, because sometimes we're too close to the story to see the other sides and the different angles that we can approach from. And if you've got somebody that you can trust, that you can go to, they'll see that different perspective that you can't see and make it a little bit easier for you to find your path, especially if you are a pantser, which I think most of us are. And we kind of just go, hey, this is a great idea. I know we're getting to this point, but I don't know how.
Yep.
And on the other side of it, with the client work that I do, it's all based off of outlines. So I feel constricted having to live within those outlines. And of course, I can't 100% adhere to them. So I'm always adding extra stuff and tweaking it, and then having to give long-winded explanations to them as to why I tweaked it, and make sure that I sell them on the idea that this was the better path to go on.
Yes. Yes.
I need the creative side. I cannot just go straight with what you said.
So what's next, Trish?
What's next? So I mentioned writing, or not really co-writing, like the artist, and he's illustrating the story, but we came up with a story together too. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out a little bit. Like if you'll be okay with the story that I create. So far, he's been okay with all my plot points. So hopefully he will like the style as well. But he's read some of my stuff, so I don't think it will be bad. And we've never met in person. So that's the next time I look for that collaboration. But I'm really excited about that story because it'll be my first hardcover book. And I think that'll be really neat to have an illustrated hardcover book. The next major novel, I do have a romance novel coming out in May. My brain is like not even thinking about romance. So I just created a new pen name for my romance series. So that will be spun off into Maria Jane is the pen name for that. And it's in the same perfect romance series that my Tricia Copeland was writing under, but it's one of the main character's friends. So where I'm branching out to the character's friends, so we see their romance and love lives, which is, I love writing that it's not young adult, it's new adult romance, but it's not the risque erotic one, like fade to black still, but fun, and I love those. So that's coming out in May, and then I will, after I finish this Aztec story, I'll start writing my next Fae novel, which is the third in the Realm Chronicles series.
Cool.
Already got a couple of points. Like I woke up, talking about dreams, I did have a dream, and I woke up and I thought that's like the main like kicker point of the whole arc of the story. And yeah, so that was fun. But I just have that in my head. I've been listening, the first book in the series, To Be a Fae Queen, came out on audiobook in January. So now in my car, I listened to the first one, so I'm remembering everything that happened in the first one. And yeah, and I'm writing down ideas every time. I'm like, oh, I forgot that happened. Oh, I forgot that.
Oh yeah.
Even though it's really fun for me to listen to.
Yeah, I had to go back and look at an old book. I had to go back look at Wolf Moon in doing this series because I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta tie that in and what happened here. That was written 7 years ago, 6 years ago. So I'm like, gotta
refresh the memory.
Yep, exactly. So I read that and I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm a fast reader, so if I want to read something, I can usually finish it.
You are an unbelievably fast reader.
Not as fast as Rebecca.
No, Rebecca beats us all.
Yes.
I'm a ridiculously slow reader. Have always been a very slow reader. You guys, like, I can't believe how fast you can get through stuff.
Yeah.
And with detail too. Like, I mean, you can skim and read something fast, but no, you guys actually read that fast with detail.
Yes, with constructive feedback.
Yeah, it amazes me. It absolutely amazes me.
The scene needs to do this. Yes. Or you didn't hide the body. Why did you leave her in there with the body? I did that on the last one I did. She fixed it. I'm like, you left her in the room with the body.
Whoops.
The body.
And that's why we need beta readers.
Yes, exactly. The body has weapons. You don't want her to have weapons. It was a mafia romance.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. So
well, see, at least Rebecca was paying attention.
Yeah, no, that was me telling the
Oh, it was you? Oh,
it was me telling the author, yes.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Well, good.
So
again, that's why we need beta readers.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we are human, we will make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny too, because anytime I talk with somebody and I mention that I'm an author, then all of a sudden they're worried about what they say or what they type to me, and I'm like, oh no, there's a reason authors need editors, because we screwed up.
Yes.
Believe me, even though I do editing, I still screw it up unless I'm in editing mode.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, my first drafts are a mess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're a little bit more meaty than they used. You know, actually, they're thinner now than they used to be because of you.
Oh no, you didn't adopt my style, did you?
But to get the story out, and then then I know I have to layer it at least 2 or 3 times to go through it and add and fix and whatever. But yeah, yes, I have adopted that a little bit.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. The stories get done faster.
Okay, then I'll take credit.
Because I'm not self-editing as I go.
It's hard to turn that editor off, though.
Oh yeah, she's a bitch.
Actually, it's not even the editor; it's the critic. The editor comes later. It's that little voice in your head that goes, "Why did you put that there? No, that doesn't work. Cut that. That's a horrible word. Rewrite that sentence."
Mm-hmm.
Shut up. All right. Well, Jesus, is it an hour already?
Yeah, I just saw that. I'm like, wow, okay.
We didn't even get to the podcast. Do you have a few minutes? You want to talk about your podcast?
Sure. I'd love to. Yeah. And I was saying, how inspiring it must be to dual write with an author. I think that's the same thing that my podcast has done for me. I started it last March, and I hadn't seen all my author friends in that year and a half. And I missed going to all those cons. And I missed seeing my readers, and I missed seeing my author friends, and feeling low in the bucket of creativity and those things. So when I started doing my podcast, I got to talk to all my friends, and I interviewed all my friends first, and then branched out to more authors like Jane, which I loved learning about all your books. The name of the podcast is Finding the Magic. So it's all on all the major channels. And I interview authors about their books, what they're writing, and all different genre authors. So I have some romance, mostly fantasy and sci-fi it's turning out to be, but some romance authors have been a lot of fun too. Yeah, once a week I have my face on my face. My page on Facebook is Finding the Magic Book Podcast.
We will make sure to put the notes for that at the end of the show. So all of your links will be in there. So anybody watching this later can easily find you. And anybody who's watching this now, give us about 10 minutes after the show's done, and we will have the notes updated so you can find that link.
And any authors that want to be on the podcast, I would love to have you guys as well.
Awesome.
Yes, it was fun.
Is there a sign up link
from your
Is there a sign up link from your website that they can click on, or?
Yeah, that would be a good point for me.
I just emailed you.
Yeah, just message me on Facebook, and I'll send you a sign up. Like, really, right now, I have interviewed so many people in the past 2 months. Like, I have enough shows to go all the way through August.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Awesome.
I got a lot of people, Jane one included, but yours is coming up pretty soon, so it's not too far. But I got a backup, so I sort of stopped like advertising for authors and waiting a little bit to like record some more.
Yeah,
looks like you've got an invite to Just Joshing as well.
Josh is a cool guy.
Yep.
I left him speechless. So I have that in my little hat.
There you go. All right. Well, I think that's about all the time we've got for today. And like I said, everybody who's watching now, we will make sure to put the show notes with all the links. Give us about 10 minutes after the show's done. And for those of you who are watching this later, the links will be in the notes below. Tricia, thank you. This has been a fun show. Thanks for hanging out with us.
You guys are super fun. I loved it. Thank you.
Oh, good. That's what we hope for. And Jane, you and me next week. It's going to be our astrology check-in. Our viewers said that they did like the show, so we're going to try and bring that back as our regular mid-month thing. We'll check in with the stars, and I've got another astrologer to introduce you guys to. So look forward to that next week, as well as Go Indie Now's announcement that we will show you next week about their upcoming schedule. All right, I think we are good to go, guys. Thanks again for hanging out, and have a great week, everybody. Take care.